My name is Yulia Sion. I'm a researcher and industry expert in haptics and wearable technology, and I will be hosting today's episode. Today, we will be discussing immersive experiences enabled by electrical muscle stimulation with Ivan Isakov. Dr. Ivan Isakov is a CTO and co-founder of Valkyrie Industries. And for the past 5 years in the company, he has been developing a variety of haptic products, including suits, gloves, armbands, and he has created multiple VR experiences, including industrial robotic teleoperation system, creative sculpting app, ArtJail, and immersive fitness app, EIR training. In addition to his startup job, he is a speaker, educator, and a creative coder. Hi, Ivan. Thank you for your time to chat with me today. How are you?
Hello, Yulia. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, pleasure for me. And it's so exciting to see you again because we met at South by Southwest Festival, right? March, I believe. Yeah, it was March. And it was so nice meeting you there. And I remember you showed me the system, right, that you're currently working on for your startup. But before we jump into the startup aspects, right, maybe I can ask you my regular question I ask everyone is about your path towards haptics, right? Could you please share your journey towards the world of haptic interfaces and maybe what inspired you to pursue this field?
Of course, I think my road was maybe a bit convoluted. I started as a PhD in nanotechnology and flexible electronics and had a road through academia, but through physics and material science. And although I was working on technology and on electronics, I was fascinated by connection between humans and technology throughout all my life. I was working, as I said, on flexible electronics at Imperial College London and on new electronic materials for sensors, wearables, and Internet of Things. And then I learned about the ecosystem of companies and research organizations in the UK and Europe works on that. In 2016, I randomly went to an event where I have experienced various haptic devices like robotic haptics, fundamental VR, or ultrasonic haptics, and it was pretty impressive. But it was someone aside. My mind was staying there, and I remembered this. And then in 2017, I went through a deep tech startup incubator called Deep Science Ventures here in London, where I teamed up with amazing product designer Krush at Efipur, who became my co-founder. And we tried to find problems and try to fix them and help to fix the problems in the world using combined expertise. And so we have founded Valkyrie Industries with ambition to create haptic devices because we understood that VR is growing, but there's something that's missing, and something is touch. It's when there's kind of embodiment, and I was trying to put electronics on people's body, and he was going to the same direction through design. And so we thought, okay, haptics is something that's definitely not developed enough. And
right, so it's about your hunch kind of that haptics is a niche and it's something that is currently missing. That's what kind of motivated you to move in the direction of haptic displays, interfaces?
Yeah, we were looking at augmenting senses as well in our body, as I said. So trying to use electronics and technology, combining people and computers, essentially doing some sort of human-computer interfaces, and we didn't really know which direction should we do that. And we were just exploring very broadly. VR was just coming up, and we thought, oh, maybe VR is a good opportunity. And we started talking to surgeons, industrialists, professors, and asking them, hey, VR is growing. Where do you think it will go? Or what do you think is missing? What do you think is very important? And a lot of people said, mostly everyone said that haptics is a missing link and technology of touch is not developed enough. And we thought, okay, that's a good direction to try to solve. And we just started with a sketch on a piece of paper and said, okay, let's do that without any experience in haptics, which is interesting, and then went full on for 7 years.
Interesting. Okay, so it started with like some sort of inspiration from the industries and some sort of also research that you did, right? Like a benchmark in a way. Well, you already touched upon Valkyrie Industries, but maybe you can give us a bit more of overview of your startup, what it does, and who are your primary users.
Of course, yeah. So co-founder of Valkyrie Industries, we are building wearable electrical muscle stimulators connected in real time to XR devices or VR devices and software that leverages this tech. Muscle stimulation, or EMS for short. So EMS and XR combo can provide sensations of load, weight, resistance, and forces of virtual objects. So essentially, kind of you're trying to get the feeling of weight in virtual reality. And this can lead to multiple applications. Our current users are in fitness, gaming, and medical field for recovery and rehabilitation.
How did you get to this particular application area, or let's say use case? What led you to that particular direction?
Yeah, so as I talked about this in a previous question, we started with the question, what's missing? And touch and sensations of touch and haptics were missing. And one of the important bits of it is weight, is how do you perceive the load in VR? There's nothing like that. There's still nothing like that in VR. You can do something with pseudo haptics or with some simple motors with very, very, very crude. We understood that load is something that's not developed at all. So we went in this direction and we started working using muscle stimulation. After we developed it for some time, we understood that actually realistic load we cannot really deliver. It's never be 100% realistic. So we understood that we need to go somewhere where not very realistic load is enough, where muscle stimulation brings enough value to get to a certain point without giving you realism. And so fitness is something where people are like, okay, I get some sort of weight, I train, this gives me positive physiological impact, but I don't need to be 100% realistic. So this led us to fitness. The same thing, muscle stimulation can be used for medical and has been used for medical for a while. So we thought medical can work as well, and we're combining movement as well as muscle stimulation there.
So muscle stimulation, it actually does stimulate muscle when the actuation is applied, or is it more of a, say, a motivational trigger for those who are working out using your system? Just to clarify, what exactly is happening?
Yes, it's actually stimulates your muscles. It's actually stimulates your muscles, and actually like you would do when you hold a heavy object.
So you work double, right? So you work out, and while your muscles are also stimulated in addition to your workout.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that happening? So it's like a double stimulation in a sense.
Yeah, it's additional impact on top of what you're doing. If people have been using EMS for a while already, I think it's 50 years old technology. So people have been using EMS on top of their regular training. You train with either your body weight or with real weights, and then you put EMS on top, and this will kind of increase the quality, increase the muscle fibers engagement. So we're doing the same thing in VR.
Can you talk a bit more about the actual EMS, the technique, how it works, what it does to our body? What is electrical muscle stimulation? Because I can imagine not everyone is aware of it. We all know about electricity, but electrical muscle stimulation is not everyone accustomed to this. So it would be great if you could give like the definition and how it works.
Yeah, so it's a complex system, but yeah, electrical muscle stimulation is essentially you contracting your muscles using electrical impulses that run through your muscles. So usually your brain, how you usually activate your muscles, your brain sends signals, so nerve signals to your muscles, muscle contract. Well, there's some potential appearing on the muscle fiber, and muscle fiber contracts. So the energy is being released during this moment, the force is being created, and the work is being done. This is happening when you send it from our brain. We do the same thing when we send it from outside of your muscle. So we have electrodes on either biceps or triceps or any other muscle, and electrical impulse runs through your muscle fibers, and muscle fibers contract absolutely the same way as they would do if you send the signal from your brain. There's some difference, of course, when you use the real weights. In addition to muscle contraction, you have tendons which are stretched as well, and some additional load that and gravity that pushes your limb somewhere. We're not doing that. Obviously, we're doing only muscle. So it's not 100% one-to-one relationship with real holding of the objects, but it's very, very similar. And then if you talk about training that you can get from muscle stimulation, it's essentially the same. So there's been a lot of research on how EMS is connected with training, with muscle training, strengthening or hypertrophy, so increasing the volume of the muscle. And the more contraction the muscle does, the better it trains. And it doesn't actually matter whether you do it from your brain intention or from outside electrodes.
It does not matter.
It matters in terms of movement. So if you want intentional movement, if you want to move a certain way and you want to connect several, so if the movement is complex and you need to do many, many things at the same time, then it matters, of course. But if you just want to get the increase in the muscle strength, then it doesn't matter.
Interesting.
So for coordination is important. For just muscle strength, you can just do contraction.
So
But interestingly, in VR you can do both. So you can make people do certain movements and work on coordination, plus with muscle stimulation on top. So you can go both on coordination as well as muscle strengthening.
Wow, that's cool. Really cool. So it's more like a focused aspect. Why did you choose specifically EMS as an actuation technique for your startup? And have you considered other alternatives? Maybe you can talk about pros and cons of EMS specifically for your application and any other alternatives you considered.
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned, the weight is missing in VR. So there's no, you as a haptic researcher, you know that's very difficult to create real forces, more than whatever, 5 newtons in a wearable device. You can do this in a stationary device. So there's robotic systems with the big robotic hands like Haptics or similar that can push your hand against your movement.
Right. So you're talking about the force feedback in that case,
exactly,
right?
the kinesthetic force feedback devices. They cost 30K, 100K. They're very, very big. They're very great. They're great devices, perfect for industries, but they're not scalable. You cannot use it, and no users can just get them at their homes. We thought, how can we do similar thing, but with simpler technology? And I've never been, I was not very good with mechanics. I was good with electronics, but not with mechanics. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do it in mechanics, but maybe if you can activate your muscles the same way as the muscles are activated, maybe it's easier. And it's just one patch that sits on your muscle. It's very simple. There's no moving parts. It's a very small device that can get you obviously not exactly the same level as the kinesthetic force feedback devices, but at least get somewhere at 1% of the price, or even less. So there's one direction. Yeah.
One thing to ask, and also it is connected to your user pool, let's say, the perception of this technology, right? When you hear electrical muscle stimulation, right? When you hear this word electrical, right? Some people may think, wow, how safe is this? how trustworthy is this technology, right? And do you feel that it may affect the adoption of this technology in a way?
Yeah, of course. We know the risks, and that's why again there's several ways I can approach this question. One is that yes, for gamer, for example, it will be maybe more difficult to adopt that, but this is technology been used for 50 years to contract muscles, to help recover after injury for athletes, to improve blood flow, remove spasms, muscle training during operations or after operations when person is lying on the table, on a bed somewhere in a hospital and they cannot move, and they use still EMS to keep the muscle moving. It's been used for a while for physios, athletes, for sportsmen. So it's been used and accepted there.
Mhm.
So we think that's why we think that some application in medical and rehabilitation recovery is very good application because people know this. It's easier to start from this direction to bring value, to bring higher value than just, oh, it's just haptic feedback, it just gives you information, it gives you something else. Is one thing.
Right. Mhm.
Another thing is well, you just said what about users who might think that it's not safe. You're not the only person who thinks that. American Federal Drug Administration, Food and Drug
I
Administration
don't think so.
thinks the
I'm
same way.
curious.
No. So FDA, so Food and Drug
Mhm.
Administration in the US, is actually regulates those devices. So all the
Mhm.
EMS devices that have been sold in US needs to be regulated by FDA. So they need
Mhm.
to go through the process of very strict compliance and regulations, and we're doing that.
Mhm.
They're all the devices which are sold in US, they go through all this process. So they're made in a safe manner, they're made in a way that is almost impossible. Obviously, there are some people out there who can harm themselves, but they can't harm with anything. But yeah, there's a lot of very strict certification pathway that we're following.
Mhm. Right. All right. Good. As you mentioned, EMS has been largely used for medical purposes, right? So there's this aspect of medical things. But when we take it to everyday use, let's say we can imagine that such VR immersive experiences for sports, right, for daily use, it's a bit different approach, right? And I would love to hear more about your design process, actually, like from the nitty-gritty aspects of that, from how did you start, like the brainstorming process to the further steps of developing and testing and adjusting. What research have you done, maybe with users? What feedback did you receive? And anything that you would like to kind of share with us, like this kitchen process.
A good question, a very good question. We absolutely start from the end users and then end customers always. So we can speculate as much as we want on what do we think end users will want, but we go to, for example, for fitness, we go to end users, fitness users as well as fitness trainers. We go there, and if we want to replicate fitness training in VR with our devices, for example, then we go to fitness trainer and say, hey, you train 100 people every day. Why they go there? What makes them tick? Why people like that? What people want from training, from fitness?
Mm-hmm.
And then you understand the most important value for the user. You say, okay, my technology gives you this sensation. So in our case, we want to make authentic fitness experience, for example, and we start from there. We start from the highest value, and we're like, okay, let's fix this, find this highest value, focus on that, create this application, and then from that we can grow and go into the multi-user, beautiful environment, something else, because this final value, main value, is the most important. For medical field as well, we start from doctors and patients. We speak to them. You show very rough prototypes. You try to get users, patients, fitness trainers involved as early as possible, and then show them your progress, or show them what's happening, what do they like, what do they don't like, what makes a
Okay,
difference for them.
just to clarify, so your expert group, so the experts in your application area would be your first users for your early, let's say, prototypes, correct?
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And
Okay.
then so we did with the fitness product, we did, I think, several iterations, 3 iterations of the hardware. The third one is 3.1, 3.2.3. So we had like maybe 5 iterations of the hardware, and we had like as well 3 iterations of the software. And after each iteration, we show it either to a bunch of people, or we do a proper UX study. So we did already 2 research studies on the final customers. First, we did how they perceive muscle stimulation, how they do the like muscle stimulation. Does it make sense for them to have it in this particular bit and not in this particular bit? And to understand what people like more.
Can you share some of these insights? What, like, let's say your final iteration to the previous iteration, or the most, let's say, eye-opening, unexpected insights that you received from your user groups in terms of their perception of, specifically of EMS, I would say, like the feedback itself and the whole system as well, maybe if you can.
Yeah, so again, we can look from different perspectives. Haptics using EMS is very different from vibrotactile haptics. It's absolutely kind of, you cannot really properly compare them. There can be vibrations, using EMS, but it's not the point of EMS. EMS gives you not just information or some vibrational feedback, it gives you as well this muscle contraction, which is completely different value proposition. So when people who know VR and try VR with EMS, they say, okay, this is very visceral sensation. It involves your body. Your full body feels involved. It's very interesting, very different from if you just in VR and you just move through it. Here, you get kind of the closest. Some people said, okay, this is the closest we felt to resistance in VR. Obviously, closest meaning like 30% out of 100%, but still is the closest you can get. Then one thing that actually was eye-opening for us, and we didn't know when we started, we did first demo, it was like a year and a half ago with 30 people, and a lot of them next day said, oh, I feel my muscle hurt the next day, like they do after fitness training. And like, oh, this is interesting. And next physiological study that we did, and we're publishing actually, hopefully it will be published the next month. We did specifically on comparing, it's called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. So how your muscle hurt next day, comparing just VR fitness versus VR fitness without devices, with air devices. And we use this muscle soreness as kind of indication that you have increased muscle metabolism after the training, you have an increased contraction, meaning that there's a potential for muscle adaptation or muscle training, muscle strengthening. So this was very interesting. We knew that it works, but we didn't know really how. And after doing the tests, people called me next day and said, Ivan, my muscle hurt. So yeah, so that was, and it's not hurt like, okay, it's just I injured them. It's more that, okay, I know how when I go to the fitness after whatever months of not doing it, I feel the same level of muscle soreness.
Yeah, so it's like from after workout. But how about on a perceptual level in terms of kind of pleasant, unpleasant feeling? I assume you can also adjust the intensity, right?
Yeah.
So have you done any changes for your iteration on adjusting that intensity, making it more or less maybe intense, or in the sense of more or less pleasant, unpleasant, or irritating, less irritating? Did people express any, I would say, preferences in that direction?
So we did some tests early on trying to find, with vibration, you can have frequency and intensity. Here with EMS, you can have frequency, intensity, as well as pulse width, because it's pulsed impulses. And this can change your perception a lot. So we found something that's worked, I think, for 5-10 people. We did some experimentation. We found that some range of frequencies and pulse widths is most pleasant. If you go too high, then it becomes even more unpleasant. The thing we chose the best for us, but it doesn't work for everyone. So there will be people who find it uncomfortable, and it's a new feeling. So people, you remember when you tried yourself as well, it's strange feeling, and it's not everyone. Some people do find it pleasant. I'm used to it, obviously. Some people say, okay, I don't want to do it anymore, but it's 1% probably of those people who try it. Everyone else.
But I guess it also depends on getting used to, right? As you mentioned,
exactly.
You get used to it. So it probably takes time. Do you know, you probably had some observation of how long you need to start getting immersed into this, right? So.
Well, for some people it's 20 20 seconds when they do the
Uh-huh.
calibration, when you choose the level, when they try it and like, okay, I don't want to go that way. They start the fitness, and after they do the fitness, okay, I actually should have went higher level because I got
Mhm.
used to it in a couple of minutes. Some people don't like it full time all the time, but it's as with any physiological experiment, you probably know as well, you have very wide variety of people. There's you can say, okay, we're catering 85% of all the users. We cannot really cater to all of the 100, unfortunately, with this technology.
Yeah, I feel like, because I haven't worked at EMS, but I feel EMS has a higher steep curve, let's say, right? Because it already starts in a quite high level of potentially feeling uncomfortable, and then you have to find this sweet spot that can keep people using it, right? So I feel like this sweet spot is like shorter in comparison to maybe a vibrotactile feedback. So it's kind of maybe harder on the designer side to find that sweet spot that would keep people
Yeah,
feeling good in a sense, right? So I
yeah.
guess you found it.
Well, we think we found it, but it's again,
For
we
most, of
started
course,
from
not for everyone. Mm-hmm.
we we made a conscious decision not to go into gaming, but to go into
But
fitness.
why? You mentioned probably not for gamers. Like, why not gaming?
Gaming works, so it works for gaming. You wield a sword, you have bow and arrow, you climb. That's all very good applications. So it does
Mm-hmm.
work. But for gamers, is not mainly. It's not for working out. For gamers, gaming is for whatever, getting immersed in the game and enjoying and having fun, or getting a thrill of the game. And a lot of some of them would enjoy it a lot. Some of them, as you said, okay, will just think, okay, why do I want, it's slightly uncomfortable. I don't want this feeling. I would like to see all the dragons around me, and I don't care about the feeling that much. And they will not understand the value that it brings physiological.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
if they don't, or when they play a game that they want to work out, they want just to play a game. And that's why looking for physiological value first. So saying, hey, if you play this, you train your muscles. It's higher value than it's you have fun and then you train on top of that. With gaming, just having fun, slightly more immersed, it's less value. Physiological high value, meaning um, you can get you can push yourself a bit further, and you can say, okay, tiny bit uncomfortable, I can sustain that for 20 minutes of a workout because I know that I will get benefits from it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. But you say low value for gaming, right? I mean, obviously, I think if you talk about in general haptic feedback or touch, right, during gaming, it's quite valuable, right? In general, it will be valuable to have it if it's done in the right way, in a natural way and appropriate way. So do I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, that EMS has a more of a focused path, right? So application in a sense. And it has a low value in gaming because it's harder to find this, let's say, pleasing output, right? In terms of haptic feedback, right? So it's more useful for either you have a specific direction, like improve your wellness, right? And then you really have this motivation, or for more like intense haptic feedback, let's say swords or fights and things like that, where the unpleasant or intense feedback is required.
Yeah, to some extent, I think you're right. It is more difficult to find like something which is just simple vibration and you don't care about it. You still need to calibrate yourself before doing that, and you still need like this patch that sits on your skin. So it's already higher friction to get to this level than with
Mm-hmm.
any vibrotactile, for example, like controllers that you have in your hand and they just vibrate. So yeah, from
Mm-hmm.
this perspective, yes. However, I was speaking to a lot of haptic designers actually since we met. I spent some time with people at GDC that work on haptics, on vibrotactile mainly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a bit sad that what they say, game designers, game developers spend 90% on visuals, 10% on audio, 0% on haptics.
Mm-hmm.
There's people don't spend time on vibrotactile haptics because it doesn't really, it's already doesn't, they don't spend enough because they don't think it brings enough value. There is a niche of people in gaming that definitely happy that they buy the haptic suits, buy all the other devices that gives you this vibration. They have chairs, vibrational chairs. This great. There's a lot of things, a lot of places where it definitely brings value emotionally. But it's as well a small niche overall. Unfortunately, it's little, it's too little, and developers think there's too little value for end users. If you talk about millions of people who can play your game.
Well, yeah, the question is that what is the value and why it's not enough, right? So it's probably cost, right? First is and then what does it provide to you, right? So maybe vibrotactile, and it is a fact, right? It's still limited in what it provides, right? So that's why I was curious about electric muscle stimulation, because as I understand, it's actually very nuanced. There is a way for nuanced manipulation of the feedback of the output itself. So that's why I was curious, can you actually create all kinds of sensation using electrical muscle stimulation, including on the less implicit spectrum, more of relaxing, let's say, some sort of pleasing sensation? Is it possible? That's my question.
I think it's possible, but you need to like properly position your contact on your skin in a good way, in a proper way. You need maybe to clean your skin, and you have need to have very good contact that doesn't go through your nerves, but goes so like doesn't go through superficial nerves, but go deeply into your muscle without touching any pain receptors, for example. So it's possible, and I think a lot of my colleagues would agree. They do like EMS because it feels like a massage. For example, you can put it in your neck and it relaxes you because it feels like a massage. So yes, you can do that, but it's very different from different places on your own body as well. So I wouldn't put it on my finger because finger has a lot of pain receptors, and finger will be annoying. On the bigger muscles like legs or arms, it works very well. On some other muscles, it will not. You can get nuanced sensation, you can get pleasant sensation. Maybe for some people it will not be. As I said, there's 1% of people who will never try EMS because they're very, very sensitive skin. But a lot of others can. And if again, as I said, if you get used to it a bit, you understand, okay, I don't care about my skin, I care about my muscle, which gets relaxed.
I see. Well, interesting. Yeah, that's what I was also curious about. Like, are there any applications for EMS beyond medical and wellness aspects, right? Can we convey information, let's say, using EMS potentially?
Yeah, like, of course, as I said, you have intensity, you have time, you have frequency, you have pulse width, and you can do anything you want with that. You can not just do waveforms, but like you with voice coils, you can play a lot with frequency, and you already get very interesting sensations here. You can in principle do the same.
Cool. Okay. Good to know.
Mhm.
We are running out of time, surprisingly. They got deep into design. But I still want to ask you definitely the question which is related to arts and science. So I discovered when I was learning about you, right, preparing for this conversation, is that you're actually also doing a lot of collaborations within arts and science space, right? You call it, at least it's called on your website, infotainment in a sense, right? So some sort of sci-art and infotainment collaborations. Because I'm a fan of art and science projects, I'm part of some of those as well. So for me, it's a very interesting topic. Can you tell us a bit more about these collaborations? Maybe like one or two most exciting projects that you had, and yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so when I was at Valkyrie already, I was doing electronics, but I was learning to code, and I used the programming language called processing. I don't know if you heard about it.
Yeah,
It's a
sure.
language, again, made for artists. And because I have physics background, I did a lot of physics concepts for visualizations, which was really cool. I learned a lot, and then I moved into Unity and started playing with shaders, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so I started working with some artists that I work actually now as well, with some people who have ideas, and I let them implement it in creating various embodied experiences, various gamified VR experiences as well. But I think some of them as well, maybe one of the most interesting one that you asked for, one of the or some of the bits that I was working was interactive art installations. So worked with teams for at the European Burning Man style festival called Nowhere in Spain. I think I've been there several years already.
Yeah, it's a whole festival.
And yeah, I go there with a bunch of friends, with musicians, artists, and we build big structures of light emitting diodes, wood sensors, music, fabric. It's a great place to just do whatever you want, to learn how to build large structures. I come from electronics background, but I kind of managed to create very big immersive installations. I think last year we did with my partner. It's called In Search of Spider Consciousness, and was inspired by research on sentience of insects and spiders. Create
Wow.
giant spider where you can see through the eyes of the spider, you can kind of perceive the world, and you enjoy the space inside. And it's beautiful art installation itself. It's 3 meters high, 10 meters wide.
So it's a visual experience, right? So mostly, as I understand.
So this particular was visual, but visual and kind of perceptual as well. So it's a space where you can go and you lie on the net, kind of web of a spider, and you lie there and you enjoy the space. So it's a spatial experience as well. Previously, I did something which is more interactive, where you can pull on some bits and the light changes or the music changes. So yeah, it's audio, visual, a bit tactile, very spatial, immersive.
Have you tried to embed any like haptic stuff in such experiences, or have you thought about it? Because like most of installations nowadays still is mostly audio-visual, right? Installations, and I always like when I go to such things, I'm always looking: is there something I can touch, like experience with my hands, or body in general? So very few, like I find very few of those. But have you thought about integrating haptics in any way or form?
I think the simplest. I think I have several friends who implemented like big rumble packs or rumble motors in the sofas somewhere where you sit, you enjoy music, and there's vibration that moves your full body. And this is great. But the full body haptics is something that like makes you really immersed and very emotive. So these ones are good. But I haven't personally. I didn't do haptics. I did do the opposite, where you grab something and you pull, when you're more on the sensor based.
More like in a for interaction perspective, right?
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
the interaction side. Very interesting. So what do you think? There's lots of these arts and science projects right now with like this pushing to these collaborations in tech, art, and science. Like, how do you think how like art and science can mutually benefit each other? Like, what is the main, like, what did you feel when you were collaborating with art? So did it give it to you? Probably, I don't know.
Yeah, well, science is very creative. I was scientist before I started the company, so science is very creative discipline. You need to think outside of what people thought before you. Art, similar way. You need to go out, be loose, but art can be intentional as well. And art requires a lot of research as well. So there's a lot of approaches in art and science which is similar. You need to be aware of the creativity in science to be better scientists, as well as you need to be aware of research that helps with art. That's kind of it's two directions which are very yin and yang. I run as well. I run small event. The word infotainment actually comes from the event that I run in London every 3 months, called Seven of Clubs. It's like a small TED style intimate event with 4 people talking about their respective topics. And it's very, very
What
broad.
is the name again? Can you spell it?
It's called 7 of Clubs. It's like card, like a playing card. 7 of Clubs.
Yeah.
And artists, designers, scientists, entrepreneurs, can leave the link if you want. Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, very different people talk about very different ideas, and sometimes they talk about the same topic, but sometimes talk about very, very different ones. And it's good to see. It is looking at the world from completely different perspectives.
Mhm. Cool. Really nice. Well, I should check more on this because I really love this. For me, it's a really always a great and inspiring experience to be between this art and science, because as you say, science is very creative. It is, but sometimes it has these limitations, right? So especially if you run experiments and stuff. And then art is on the other spectrum, right? So I feel like when we collaborate with art, then we it's like a breath of fresh air in a way of some liberty and more liberty even, right? We talk about science. Right. Okay, so let's finish up. And as a last question, I wanted to ask you, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is just starting in haptics, maybe to run a startup in haptics, or maybe in general in haptics? It's up to you.
Yeah, I think I mentioned already several times here, find the value for the end user. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the most important for any startup in general, but specifically important for haptics as well. A lot of very cool companies, haptic companies out there, struggle to find value for end user. I mentioned vibrational chairs. I think D-Box, they do vibrational chairs. They showed a very cool graph where people watching movies and they were measuring emotions, I don't know, through skin connectivity or something. And I watched the movie just on big screen, and I watched the movie on the big screen with a D-Box chair, and I had much more like positive or negative emotions while we were in this chair. So this feels like, okay, this is proven value that I feel much more emotions when I watch a movie in this vibrational chair. This is great demonstration of value for haptics. Find value. So even if it's first one customer that will use your haptic technology and will understand that it gives them an edge over their competitor, or improves their processes by 50%, and then from there you can grow into other applications or to other customers as well.
Right. So it's not just the value, but like a science-backed value, right? So some sort of studies, some statistics would help, right? So it's not just
Yeah.
message, but backed up by research in a way. Great. Thank you. Well, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for talking and sharing your insights of your process, design process of your company, and your scientific also knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Yulia. It was a pleasure.